joining me for our Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Buckchester. You know what I like to do on the show. I want to enlighten, I want to inspire, and I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And today, we want to get you fired up about love and friendship. My guest today, Karen Dewell, has written a children's book, The Adventures of Little Bear and Bluebird. I know, such an awesome title. I cannot wait to talk to her more. Now, who doesn't want to instill in our children the beautiful values of love and friendship? I know that was really important on my list when mine were little. Now, I'm not going to bore you with a long old bio. I want to actually talk to her. So you know what I'm going to say. Get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee, get your tea, because we are about to get started. So let's get Karen the mic. Good morning, Karen. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me today on Daily Spark.
Good morning. Very happy to talk to you all.
Yes, ma'am. I am so excited to talk to you about such a great topics as love and friendship. But before we do that, I want to ask you a little bit more about, who you are in your own words. I read so many bios, and it gives us all of, the spiel of who we are. But it's nothing like hearing it in the person's own words. Now, if I understand correctly, you're not only a wife and a mom, but you're a grandmother too. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, we have 10 beautiful grandchildren, and most of them are here on the West Coast with us. There's one back in North Carolina, and we love them dearly. They're all precious, and I think being a grandparent is one of the things that inspired me to write the book.
I can understand that. I remember my mother saying the same thing, that it's totally different being a grandparent than being a parent. The expectation is different. What you do is different. Mm-hmm.
It is very different. Yeah, you just want to be a very positive influence on them because they're forming, they're growing, they're learning, and you want to set a good example.
And I can understand that. Now, my children are not old. My son is not old enough to be married. I guess technically he could be married, but he's not at that particular phase of his life now because he's just now 20, where he would be getting married. But I see how excited new grandparents are. And it's like, wow, that light that's in your eyes when you see that little person show up is just amazing. I know how I feel when I see my little nieces and nephews, and it's like, oh my gosh, look at this. So I can definitely understand. Do you think that just from the perspective of how you were as a mother versus how you are as a grandmother, do you think that this book would have been written like in the same voice, so to speak, as just a mom as compared to being a grandma?
I'm not sure. I think, you're so involved when you're a parent that there isn't a whole lot of time for the extra things that you might want to do as opposed to the things that need to be taken care of on a daily basis. So there's really not a lot of time to, just kind of mull over everything and try to do that. So I don't know that I would have been in a position to do that as a mother. But as a grandmother and being retired, it's, I had a dream about the characters. And so that's what inspired me to write the book.
That is awesome. I love how God has this master plan for our lives, and even if we don't know what's going to happen, He allows things to happen exactly how He has them mapped out, and it ends up being such a blessing, not only for ourselves, but for others. So I love it. Now I have to ask you about the title, The Adventures of Little Bear and Bluebird. How did you come up with such a great title?
Well, I just thought that when I started writing the book, it wasn't titled, obviously, until I was pretty much maybe halfway through with it. But when I started writing the book and I started writing about all their adventures and everything that was happening, then I thought, well, that's an appropriate title. I don't think I could improve on it, so that's what made me choose the title.
Mm-hmm.
All their little things that they went through and the lessons they learned from each other and in interacting with each other, and all their little games that they played and the things that they did, and it was just came to me.
Now, what was your motivation for choosing to write a children's book as opposed to maybe one for teens or even one for adults?
Well, I thought my first effort should be toward younger children because it's less complicated, it's less tedious. It's just more of a kind of a fantasy type of little, fiction story that children could really kind of live when they're reading it or it's being read to them. I'm also I am in the process of writing a book for older age children, somewhere between 7 and 13. That's almost completed. So, and then there'll be a sequel, of course, to Little Bear and Bluebird.
Right. Oh, that's so wonderful. And I like how you were mindful of the fact that this particular book was for this particular age, but you wanted to write one for the older kids as well. Now, did you have a particular inspiration or motivation or prompting to write this particular story of choosing, love and friendship, or choosing it to be a Little Bear and Bluebird?
Just the whole thing just kind of came together. I wasn't, I didn't have any particular plan, but I dreamt about the characters, and then I just started writing, and it just seemed to come forth. It just bubbled forth, and then each chapter would just kind of lead into the next chapter, and then I'd discuss it with my husband, and I'd say, well, what do you think about this idea? And he'd say, well, that's great. And so then I kept writing, and I just, bounced some things off of him. And basically it was kind of a joint effort between the two of us because he edited it, and we, poured over the manuscript and, switched things around and moved things around and everything else. It's a process. There's no doubt about it, even though it's only a short, thin book, but it's still, it's a creative process, and you have to take your time with it so that you make sure that it's the best that it can be.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for putting that out there, because it could be 10 pages or it could be 100 pages or 1,000 pages. It is still a labor of love, and it still needs to be the best work that we can put out there. So thank you for saying that. There may be someone who's going, well, it's only 20 pages, or it's only, it is only. So it needs to be awesome. It's only 1,000 pages. So it needs to be awesome.
That's right.
It needs to be great, regardless of the number. So thank you for that.
Written with a lot of love, definitely.
And, I think sometimes it may even be a little harder if you're choosing to have a lower page number count, because you have to convey so much in a short period of time. Trying to tell something in 10 pages is way harder than telling something in 1,000 pages. You have a lot of pages to explain it when it's 1,000 pages. So I think that's awesome. So let's not knock those kids' books, because they really give us a great lesson in just a few pages, and that's
yes,
awesome.
Yes, they do, and it impresses on them. And what I try to do in my books is teach as well. I try to portray the ideals and the values that you should have in life. Respect and paying attention to your parents and doing what they ask and praying and just all those things.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting that you say that's one of the goals that you had, and that is to teach or have a lesson, within your story. So my question is, when you're writing, is there a particular message that you're trying to convey? Like, do you come up with a topic and then write around the topic, or do you find that you are writing and then you say, hey, this book is about this topic and this topic, and that's where you go with it?
God, it's kind of hard to distinguish. What I think it just depends. It depended with me on the flow of the story, and it just flowed, and just one thing kind of went into the next thing, and it just came together like very miraculously. Sometimes I still have a hard time believing that it actually happened, that I actually did write a book, because it was just it was a very wonderful thing. Just ecstatically wonderful. So.
Yeah. I love it. Now, what do you think this book will teach parents about children? So many times we only focus in on the kids, and it's like, yeah, we're trying to make sure that the kids understand, don't bully or be kind and share, those types of things. But in reading the book, we forget that there's usually an adult or an older sibling, a babysitter, who's reading to that child, and that's something that they could get out of it. What was your goal for that side?
Just, I think, kindness, just being kind, being thoughtful, just doing the things that make people good individuals, That was, I just wanted to emphasize good in my books, and positive ways of thinking. As a parent as well as a child, how can I do, reading the book, a parent would think, well, gee, am I doing this? Am I doing what the book says that's happening? Makes them question themselves and make sure that they're on track with the way they're bringing up their children. And I think that's one of the things that was my goal as well.
I love it. Well, it is almost time for us to go to break, Karen, but before we do, I want to make sure that everyone is reminded of a few things. One, what is the title of your book? Where can we pick up a copy? And how do we follow you online?
Okay, the title of my book is The Adventures of Little Bear and Bluebird, and it can be bought on Amazon. It can be bought at Barnes & Noble, and for reference, I have a website. It's called kkidsbooks3.com with a / mark at the end. That's my website.
Alrighty, listeners, now you know where you can pick up a copy of the book. We'll be back right after this.
Anne, Camilla, William, and Fred. The four in the Humvee are on a perilous journey, halfway across the country to a tent city near the Mississippi River, a long ways from Boston. Through each bend and turn, they meet some people in need and others who have evil in their souls. Four unlikely heroes in a Humvee on an unlikely trip, the recipe for a captivating story. Grab this book, EMP Casualty by Michael Kravitz.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for a Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You know that I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you, right? Of course you do. So today we are getting you fired up about love and friendship through a children's book. The title is The Adventures of Little Bear and Bluebird, and the author is Karen Dewell. And I love the fact that she has chosen to write it as a kid's book. So, Karen, I want to ask you, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, But how has your own life shaped how you write?
Well, I was brought up very lovingly. Excuse me. I have very loving parents. And they were the center of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel that I think all that led to my writing the book.
Yeah.
I was brought up a happy child, secure, very loved, very protected, very cared about. I was the center of their lives. And I think that's what children should be.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that, and I love how so many times that I think we take for granted the thumbprint that our parents put on us. And when you have a great childhood, it's hard to shake that. You know, it's hard not to allow that to mold you into the adult that you become. And to hear you speak so lovingly and so emotionally about your parents is really just a tribute to who they were in your life and who they still are. So thank you so much for sharing that. Mhm. Mhm. Now, do you think that children are more challenged today? Because I could hear that, you know, there's certain freedoms that we had, there's certain protections, so to speak, that we had when we were younger. But do you think that the world is the same, or has it become more challenging for children? Are there more responsibilities?
Definitely more challenging. Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, it's a bad world out there. And we need to do everything we can to make it as good for our children as we can, despite all the turmoil and all the everything, the unrest that's going on all over the world. And we just have to try to protect our children from kind of not being too involved with that, because it's hard for us to understand, let alone them. So we need to just really try to instill calm and make them, you know, take them to church, read with them, spend time with them, because you never get that time back. Once they're grown, they're grown. So we have to embrace every single moment that we can as parents. It's just really, really important. And if that is the case, then they will be secure and they will not worry. And we need to protect them from the outside influences, all the bullying. It's very, very, very difficult. But we just have to try to be involved, I think, with our children's education and what's happening outside the home, and make sure that we take the necessary precautions to protect them.
Most definitely. You know, I remember I had a great relationship with my grandmother, and one of the things that she really instilled in not only myself but in everyone that she touched, everyone knew that family was really important to her, and that was one of the things that I think made a huge impact in my life, with how much she loved family. And I mean that not only just from the matter of those who are related to her by blood, but those who were adopted in. The best friend of your son or your daughter became family, and they were absorbed in. And I thought that was just a lovely thing to do, even as a young person, that everyone was always really happy to come over to my grandmother's. Now, what does that have to do with what you're saying? It's that giving a place where children know that they are safe and loved and cared for.
That's right.
I just took from what she was trying to teach me that home should always be your oasis. If you can just make it home, like the world could be crazy, but if you could just make it home, then home is like, whew, I made it.
Sanctuary. For sure.
I'm loved there. I'm safe there, and not only for our kids, but also we forget as adults we need that security and that sanctuary as well. But especially for our kids, because they're truly dealing with some stuff that we didn't have to deal with, and we definitely have to keep our kids, all of our children. I'm talking about our global kids. In our prayers, most definitely. Now, what things do you think that parents have to do differently to prepare their children for the challenges of today? Like, we didn't have to do some of the drills that they have to do in school today. We didn't have to do that. That wasn't a thing to even worry about. So what can our parents do a little bit differently that can help prepare their children but also reassure them?
I just think communication is probably the most important thing. If there's things to be discussed, you just need to sit down calmly with them and explain things to the best of your ability, no matter what's happening, no matter what the troubles are, no matter what, and set goals and just make sure that you follow through with them on things. It's a challenge nowadays. I don't envy my kids, having children growing up. It's not a pretty thing nowadays. I mean, my son's children are homeschooled. My other grandchildren they go to charter school. They're very, very lots of demands on them, lots of homework, but they're up to the task. They're intelligent. They got a lot of interaction, and both families just interact tremendously well. And I think that's one of the most important things, is that you just absolutely have to be on top of it all the time.
Absolutely.
And it's not easy. It's a full-time job.
It really is, and I laugh, and when you talk about being an involved parent, my son, now that he's an adult, he laughs and he says, no one really had to tell my mom to be involved, because my mom was definitely involved. It's like everyone joined the PTA. It's like my mother joined PTA and became PTA president. So it's like she was there all the time, and not only for me, but for my friends. And I found out a lot because he won an award and gave a little speech there, and he was saying how what I did helped influence him to do what he was doing. And it was like, what? That is amazing. But I
wow,
say
that's
that
wonderful to have your child say that to you.
Right.
I did it. I made an impression. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's got to be such a rewarding thing to hear your child say.
It really was. But when you give that advice, and I say that because we always hear people say, you gotta be involved in your kid's life. And for some parents, they're like, it becomes wah, 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 wah. Kind of like, I'm doing the best I can. I'm holding down 2 jobs, and I do this and I do that. And it's like, that's awesome. But also make sure that you're spending that loving, kind, just bonding time with them, as well. And you never know how your child is going to surprise you and say something like that, and you go, oh, my gosh, you were listening all along. That is awesome. Because they really do what we do.
They really
it's more
do.
than just they really and truly do look at us for that example. So, yeah.
And one of the most wonderful things my son told my mother is that you and Grandpa set the best example for me. You set the most wonderful examples for me, and that is in his heart. And that really meant the world to my mom to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, me being the type of person that I am, I would have been sitting there with a tear streaming down, and, as they would say on social media, who's cutting onions? It's like, no, I'm not tearing up. It's someone surely is cutting onions here. But it's those moments, and it's so wonderful to know that you're having a positive influence on the next generation. I love it. I love it. Now, you kind of hinted on before we went to break that there may be a series in the works. So I have to ask, what are your future plans?
There'll at least be one sequel to it. There'll be more adventures, A Little Bear and Bluebird. And so I'm formulating that in my mind right now because I've pretty well been devoting myself to my second book because I want to get it done. But but anyway, there will be at least one sequel to it, and there'll just be some other fun little things that'll come along, I'm sure. And the birds and the bees and the flowers and the trees,
right?
And the backyard buddies, and the ladybug and the grasshopper, and I've had lots of ideas just flitting around in my head, so I write them down when I think about them, So.
I was going to say, is there a particular message that you want to convey? Like, are you trying to do one on hope or peace or kindness, or are you just going to let the creative juices flow
just let the creative juices flow? Yeah.
I hear you.
The second book that I am writing is about the Animal Ambassador Program, so it is somewhat educational, but it also has the underlying value system, the sacrifice, the learning about the animals, just an educational but kind of heartfelt type mainstream, flow. So.
I love it. Now, I want to ask you a technical question because so many times I have authors of adult books. So there's no pictures, there's no illustrations. So I want to ask you a little bit about that. So when you're looking for an illustrator, you already have a certain idea or a picture in your mind, perhaps, of how you think your storyline should look, so to speak.
Right.
What is the process for finding the perfect illustrator for a children's book, or at least what was your process for finding the perfect?
It was very serendipitous, like I said earlier, because we were going to have one of my stepsons, do the illustrations because he's a very, very good artist and has been from the time he was a young teenager. And his work schedule just absolutely did not allow him to do it. And in all fairness, we just said, Cliff, I understand, you just can't do it. So we were in Vegas, my husband and I, and eating out with my sister-in-law, and we were in the buffet line and at Green Valley Ranch, and we had this gentleman standing next to us. And so he says, does anybody want to, because we all had 2-for-1, coupons. So he says, does anyone even want to be my coupon person? So I said, okay, I will. And so we invited him to have dinner with us. And he had an acquaintance, a person that went to his church that did all the children's murals in their church for the Sunday school classes and everything. And so we told him about the book. And he says, well, you know what? Why don't you give Darlene a call and see if she might be interested? So I kind of waited for a while, and then I thought, you know what? I'm gonna send her an email. So he had given me her address, I think he contacted her and had her send her. I gave him my information and had her send me an email so I could have her address. And we connected, and we met, and in Vegas in the next month. And I took the manuscript, most of what I had written, and we asked her if she'd be willing to do the illustrations for the book. And she had just graduated from UNLV with her degree in illustration, And she said this was her first attempt at doing it, and she just pulled through. I mean, she did beautiful drawings. We would just send her the chapter, and we'd say we want it to be about this, and she'd draw it up and then send it back to us. And that's how that happened. It was just an amazing thing. just how the whole thing came about was just absolutely unbelievable. So it was just meant to be. So
it was. It really, truly was. But that is just so smart on your side. And what I mean by that is that, I was having a conversation with a young lady the other day, and I tend to have this type of conversation with the young adults that want to spend a little bit of time with me, and that is that we have to learn how to be patient sometimes. And the way I explain it is that our lives are just like driving down the street in a car. There's stop signs, there's yield signs, there's flashing lights, there's solid lights, there's merging lanes. There's all of these things, and we have to learn how to drive appropriately this beautiful life that we have been given. And sometimes that yield sign is really and truly there so that we can pause long enough to let this other stuff go by. Because if we don't, then there could be an accident. And imagine if you had kind of like forced it and been like, no, you have to do this, and we're not going to, it could have been a totally different outcome if you had not done what you were supposed to do and go, okay, this isn't working, so let's move on because
let's
we
change lanes here.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, how awesome! I love that, and thank you. That was such a lesson within your answer. That was beautiful. I really love that. Well, Karen, I know that I have had a really great time with you today, and thank you so much for coming on the show and spending time not only with me but with our audience as well. Our time is up for the day, so I do want to give you an opportunity, though, to remind everyone one more time, what is the title of your book, where can we get a copy, and how do we follow you online?
Okay, the title of the book is The Adventures of Little Bear and Bluebird, and you can just go to kkidsbooks3.com / and you'll see it right up there on my website, and just anything you want to know. I also have an email address. You feel free to email me if you'd like. I have some copies of my own on hand that I'll be willing to send to you. So you can go to kdewell01@gmail.com. And if you want to email me and ask for a copy to be sent to you, I'd be more than willing to do that as well. And also Barnes & Noble and Amazon. So
I love it. Thank you again, Karen, for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. It's been an extreme pleasure, and I just wish everybody the best, Godspeed. Just do the best you can for your children, and just listen to them, read to them, love them, hug them, kiss them, tell them you love them each and every day, if not more than once, maybe 5 times.
Great advice. I love it. Well, listeners, thank you as well for tuning in and spending time with me today. And as always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, continue to be blessed in the Lord. Have a great day. Bye-bye.